Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Killing Mary Sue is a brand new action comedy now available to stream on all VOD platforms. Today, we are joined by the writer-director of Killing Mary Sue, James Sunshine, and Mary Sue herself, actor Sierra McCormick. Sierra and James, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Hi, Joe.
Thank you for having us.
Good to see you. James, why don't we start off? Mary Sue not only is the name of a character, right, but it's a type of trope that is known
Yes.
in movies. Why don't you start off by telling people who might not be aware what a Mary Sue is? What is a Mary Sue? And then give people a quick overview of Killing Mary Sue when you're describing the film to people. How do you set it up?
Yeah, so a Mary Sue is a character trope in fiction storytelling that is essentially a character who's usually a young woman who is just talented and good at everything for seemingly no reason at all. It's a trope that is usually kind of stumbled upon by accident. You know, writers and filmmakers don't set out to make Mary Sue's. They wind up with it and get shredded to pieces online for it. So part of what I wanted to do with this film was, I'd never really seen a film that had written a Mary Sue character intentionally. And I just realized it's ripe for having fun with. And so yeah, our film Killing Mary Sue is about a corrupt senator who's losing in his upcoming election because his stepdaughter is caught up in all these scandals and really tanking his campaign. And her name is literally Mary Sue. And he sets out to kill Mary Sue, which, if you know anything about the Mary Sue trope, is not going to go well. So the whole point of the film is we're having fun with this trope and making fun of it and having a good time with it.
What was the genesis of the film besides wanting to do a movie that intentionally has a Mary Sue? Were there any
Yeah.
other inspirations? What's kind of tell me the genesis of it,
I
how it
mean,
came
I
about?
mean that right there really is mostly the genesis of it. I'm a lover of kind of action comedy, fun, over the top films like Bullet Train or Baby Driver, Kick Ass, or things like that. So I've always wanted to do a film like that. And you have to look for a really interesting premise or hook nowadays, something really high concept to so people go, "Oh, I've seen these types of films, but I've never seen it done in that way before." And I am kind of like a very perpetually online person who's always reading film reviews and online discourse about films. And I've been fascinated by like the online viral debates about Mary Sue's, like going back to like the Disney revival of Star Wars and all of that. Um, and so yeah, I just saw an opportunity to do something unique and different that I knew would have the capacity to get people talking about it, both positively and negatively, because everybody has an opinion on Mary Sue's.
So Sierra, you play Mary Sue in the film. Who is Mary Sue Harper, and what about that character attracted you when you read the script?
Well, I think Mary Sue is someone who is dealing with some complex trauma that hasn't been addressed and therefore kind of drowns those negative emotions with hedonism as we all do sometimes. But I think that she's controlled by not just her vices, but also her sort of subservience to her stepfather. And I thought that was an interesting sort of emotional through line to play with. And also, just on top of that, I don't get the opportunity to play characters like this very often, especially in like an action setting. So that was really attractive to me. It was something I had never done before, which is always something that's going to draw me to a project or a character, is if there's something to be found there that I haven't gotten to look for before. And then also just the idea of the Mary Sue is really interesting to me because to me there's kind of a oftentimes a misogynistic overtone to that criticism where if it's a guy character he's the chosen one, but if it's a girl then oh she's a Mary Sue and it's a critique. And so I thought it was interesting to be in a project that owned that sort of decidedly said yes she is a Mary Sue and was almost empowering in a way. So I there are lots of things that sort of drew me to it. Excuse me. And then talking with James, I knew that it was going to be a crazy, bonkers, gonzo, fun time. So there were a lot of aspects that drew me to the character, and I was correct. It was a super gonzo, batshit fun time.
Now, how much of that character is you And how are you similar to Mary Sue, and how are you different?
Well, I think some people might assume that I'm very similar to Mary Sue, but that's not quite true. I don't think that I'm quite as chaotic and hedonistic and sort of honestly hurting and directionless the way that she is. But there is a level of sort of a fun, dark, dark humored personality, which I think definitely is something that ties into me, although maybe dialed up to an 11 in Mary Sue's case. And then also just, not exactly pieces of me specifically, but James was great about letting me really collaborate with all the other things about Mary Sue, like her wardrobe and her makeup and the way she has her hair and all these other fun sort of character aspects that I got to play around with. And James was very collaborative and open, so that was really fun. So I did all the makeup. All my crazy cracked out makeup is my doing. And I also wore a lot of my own wardrobe. I had a lot of ideas about costume and wardrobe, and so a lot of the pieces that I wear in the film are mine. So it was a fun collaboration of like injecting parts of myself into the character and also getting to explore the aspects of her that are very far away from me.
That's awesome.
I,
You
I'd
have
like to add,
style.
yeah, I'd like to add one great thing that Mary Sue and Sierra both have in common is that they can both just kick the crap out of anybody that they want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say for me, more verbally, I can kick the crap out of anyone, but Mary Sue very physically in a very real way can
So
kick the crap out of anyone.
James, talk about casting Sierra. When you saw her, what were the qualities that she had that made you say to yourself, "Oh, she's the one. She's Mary Sue."
Yeah. So casting for everybody in this film was really, really down to the wire. Fun fact about this film is we actually shot in 2023 right before the actors strike. Like I think we wrapped our last day of production like a day or two before the actors were going to go on strike. So our pre-production was like 3 weeks, and that's all we had, and everything came together so quickly, including the casting. And we didn't even lock in Sierra as our lead until like 2 days before filming was to begin, and we didn't even like introduce ourselves or anything until like a week before. So casting Mary Sue, as with everybody, came really down to the wire. And what put Sierra over the edge for me, that made me really believe that she was the right choice for it, was we were working with a casting director who sent over a bunch of names of people that she felt could do really well in the role. And I looked at everybody's, reels, everybody's tapes, their past work. I was really impressed with Sierra, but what stuck out for me with Sierra was she had just done a film recently with an actor that I know named Pat Healy. And Pat is legitimately one of the best actors that I know. He's incredibly talented. And I was like, okay, we got a personal connection here, kind of. So I reached out to Pat and I said, what can you tell me about this girl, Sierra? And he said basically something along the lines of like, she's very professional. She has a great sense of humor. You won't regret working with her. And I was like, okay, if she has Pat's endorsement, then I believe in her. And so we cast her without even an audition or anything. Like we had a brief Zoom meeting to kind of discuss the character and the film and stuff, but kind of just went on blind faith. And I was nervous because we hadn't had any rehearsal time. I knew that she would be good, but I was still nervous. And I was not prepared for her to be as great as she was. Like when we got onto set and started actually shooting and she snapped into character, I was like, oh my God, it feels like I wrote this role for her specifically. And it's to the point now where like I really can't imagine anybody else having been in that role.
And Sierra, I just to compliment you, you're carrying the film, right? You're surrounded by all these actors, which I'm going to name in a second, but all these like big name actors that you're surrounded with, and but yet you are the star of the film. You're doing all the heavy lifting. So kudos to you on that. James, let's talk about these other actors that are in the film. Dermot Mulroney, Jason Mewes, Jake Busey, Sean Patrick Flanery, Martin Kove from Karate Kid, French Stewart. So you got all these name actors. Talk about getting to work with them and what that experience was like. This is your first feature, and you've got all these name people in your film.
Yeah. No, it was amazing to have all of that talent and all of that wisdom and experience. I was pretty honest with myself when I came into this experience where like I definitely knew as a filmmaker what I wanted. Um, but I also knew that I would be crazy to not listen to these people, some of whom have been working professionally on sets longer than I've been alive, legitimately. So I would be crazy to come in here, and if they had an idea, to just go, nope, nope, that's not how it's going to be. If they're suggesting something, they're suggesting it for a reason. And usually when they would suggest something, my biggest thought in the other direction to say no would the first AD in my head would go, well, do we even have time to try these things? Like that that would be, if I was hesitant on something, the reason I would say no. But I tried to accommodate all of our talent as much as I could when they had ideas and wanted to bring things to the table. We had such a tight turnaround and we had to cram so much into every shoot day that we really just had to stick to the script. And there really were not a lot of opportunities for improv or this or that. But when the ideas did come up, I tried to make sure that we could find some time to really strike those.
And Sierra, let me get your take on that. You're surrounded by all of these name actors. What was that experience like
Oh
getting?
my God. As a huge cinephile, it was so awesome because I just wanted, honestly, I had to really just restrain myself from like grilling them constantly about all of their entire filmographies the entire time because I was like, I don't be weird and like, whatever. But I couldn't resist to an extent. I wanted to talk to Jake about Starship Troopers all the time and Identity. And Dermot just has an incredible filmography. And so I had to geek out to him and tell him about all my favorite performances that he's given over the years. Most notably, my personal favorite of his is Living in Oblivion. So I had to ask him about that. And Marty Kove, like I'd worked with him. So this was our second go together in a movie. So that was really fun. We had that familiarity already. And I already been in like a big ensemble movie with him before. And so that was fun to just see a familiar face. And then I didn't get to actually have any scenes with Jason Mewes, unfortunately, because it's flashback little baby Mary Sue. So sadly, I didn't get to talk to him at all. But French Stewart also was super fun to talk to, just because Third Rock was a huge show that I loved watching when I was a kid, and so getting to talk to him about that was really really exciting. And honestly, yeah, everyone was just so cool, super nice, super cordial, and I loved geeking out to them about all their filmographies. So it was a wonderful experience. I love working with seasoned, really cool actors.
I'll
Yeah.
ask.
If I could, do you mind if I piggyback off of that real quick? Um, I mean, I grew up on like Boondock Saints, and when I knew that
Oh,
Sean
yes, Sean,
Flanery,
yes.
yeah, when I knew Sean Patrick Flanery was going to be there, like I consciously thought to myself, I was like, okay, do not geek out to Sean Boondock Saints, or at least build some rapport with him first. And so I was like very conscious of that. And then when I walked up to him, the very first thing out of my mouth was, I love Boondock Saints. And I was like, the one thing I told myself I shouldn't do, I did. But he was very gracious and very
He's very gracious
so
indeed. Like he was very cool also and
yeah,
really super professional. Honestly, I was very like impressed with just his on-set demeanor. He was very focused, very
absolutely.
laser focused. Yeah.
That's awesome. I would ask both of you, what would you say is the biggest challenge you faced when making the movie? And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe what was something you thought was going to be a challenge that ended up being a pleasant surprise? Like, I wasn't expecting this moment to come out of the experience.
Yeah.
James, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I think something that I was really expecting, that I was really surprised with, was my relationship with my cinematographer, John Sawyer. We'd never met before this shoot before. And we had a lot to shoot, a lot to cram into our days, and especially the action sequences. I was kind of like, some of those shoot days on the action scenes, it's like we were trying to get 50, 60 shots off in a day. Um, and I was nervous about it. And I would sit down with John the night before, and we would just come up and game plan these strategies for the next day in a way that would allow us to pop off 50 shots. So that was something that I was pleasantly surprised with, that I was really nervous wasn't going to go well. And, it was still absolutely a challenge, and it was tough to do, but it was one of those things where it's like at the end of the day when we would wrap, and we only went like 20 minutes over time on that day, I'd be like, wow, there was no reason that this should have turned out as well as it did, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me was just the time constraints, only because rehearsal and prep is a huge part of the process for me. And what I usually enjoy the most, honestly, is the rehearsal and the prep. And so not really having the time to do any of that, I was definitely kind of anxious about it, just because, that's usually how I prefer to work. But I think what was pleasantly surprising is how much the chaos of the shoot kind of lent itself to the character. And Mary Sue, I think, is a person who's living very moment to moment. And the shoot was very moment to moment because, we were changing around the schedule, trying to fit things in, trying to, see where we could move something if we weren't able to make it on this day. And so it was a constantly changing sort of schedule and shoot. And so I think that kind of ended up coming back around and helping with the moment to moment kind of chaotic energy that Mary Sue has. So I think that I grew definitely as an actor because I didn't have the time and the prep to rely on. I kind of had to just dive in, and I think it kind of made sense. It lent itself to the nature of the character. So that was a pleasant surprise, I would say.
So, James, this is your first feature film. You come from a reality TV show background, right? You're a story producer on shows like Big Brother and Hell's
Yes.
Kitchen. What did you learn from that experience working on in the reality show world that you brought that helped you in making your first feature film?
Yeah, I learned a lot. And technically, this is my second feature film. My first one was like a tiny little no budget thing.
I was going to say that. I was like, actually, this is not
Yeah,
his first
yeah.
feature.
This is my first feature film at like a notable budget level. So I'll give you that for sure. But yeah, my background in reality, I think really helped me because my job title in the reality field is technically story producer. And so like I'm part of the team, on the set of Big Brother or Hell's Kitchen or any of these shows that I work on that, like we're coming up brainstorming the twists and the challenges and the story beats, and we're working with the talent on set, not telling them what to do, but making sure that they're presenting themselves in a way that will be good for camera. So I have experience working with celebrity talent on these sets. And it's kind of refreshing because my job too is also in post-production in the reality space, is working with the editors and taking the chaos of all this stuff that we shoot that's so disorganized and then turning it into something coherent with an A story, a B story, a C story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I spend weeks and weeks just going through footage and trying to cobble it together into something coherent. And so it's actually refreshing working on something with a script where it's like we have the script, we know how it's supposed to be. You get into the edit bay and you just start like dropping in shots and lines of dialogue exactly where they're supposed to be. And it's a breath of fresh air actually. And I do think working in the reality space has sharpened my teeth, helped me cut my teeth, and made me a better storyteller for sure.
Yeah, talk about moment to moment, honestly. And I just have to say, I had to geek out to James because I was a huge Food Network kid growing up. I loved watching Food Network. So when he was talking to me about all of his experiences, being the story producer for shows like Hell's Kitchen and stuff, I was like, I have to grill you a little bit about that. So that was me grilling all the actors about their filmography, and then I was grilling James about his Food Network experience.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I actually like really enjoy talking about my time in the reality space.
Yeah.
So like, I don't mind the questions at all. And
No,
yeah,
I wasn't sure. I was like, who knows what that's like? I don't know. So I was like, I hope it's not traumatic and I'm asking you to talk about something horrible. But no, it seems like it's really
oh
cool.
no, it is very traumatic, but I still
Oh,
enjoy
okay.
talking about it.
Okay. Well, mixed bag.
Well, we are almost out of time. Before we let you go, I always like to ask people that I'm talking to what was your when you were growing up, what was a film or a television show or a performance that you saw that inspired you and said, this is the path I want to take. I want to get in. I want to make movies.
Yeah, Sierra, why don't you go first?
Blade Runner, hands down, easily. I saw that movie when I was 12, and I was already acting professionally at that point. And when I was a kid, it was just kind of something that I enjoyed doing because I loved being on set, and I was kind of a difficult kid, like behaviorally in school, and so I was in trouble at school all the time. But on set, all of that energy and creativity was rewarded, and so I just really enjoyed being on set and kind of playing pretend and stuff. But when I saw Blade Runner, that's when I was like, oh, like I love cinema. I love movies. I love not only just the performances in that movie, but the world building and the cinematography and the score. That's like the first time I saw all clearly, I saw clearly like all of the aspects of filmmaking come together to make something that like had a huge emotional impact on me. So always the big inspiration for me is that one when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I would say like it's weird because I don't have like this one Genesis moment of like this happened and I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. Like I literally remember sitting in front of the TV like as young as 3 or 4 and just being like, yeah, I'll be doing that. I'll be making this stuff one day. However, I will say, um, when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, I saw The Matrix for the first time,
Mm,
piggybacking off of the sci-fi with Sierra.
yeah.
And even though I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, something about seeing The Matrix for the first time, it just like it blew my mind where I was like, I always loved films. I always knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't know that they could be this good, you know? Um, and so yeah, I was like Sierra, I was getting in trouble in school. I would like reenact like the lobby shootout scene with my friends in like recess in like ninth grade, and the teachers are like, "This is highly inappropriate, James. You cannot do." And I would just have this opinion of like, well, your opinion is irrelevant because filmmaking is all that matters in this life, and why do I even care what's happening at school right now? You know? So like, yeah, I'd say seeing The Matrix when I was a kid like shifted the paradigm and like changed my perspective on filmmaking and really kind of set me up to be the filmmaker I am today, which I think is funny too, because The Matrix isn't a particularly funny movie, but I'm attracted to comedy. Maybe it's the fact that The Matrix had such great kind of plot twists and escalation of stakes and all of that, which is a lesson that I've tried to put into all of my projects.
Something about seeing cyberpunk at a young age or maybe a too young age, who knows, I don't know, but something about it, it's very inspiring. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see action and you want to see comedy, you can go watch Killing Mary Sue. It's available to rent on all VOD platforms. James and Sierra, thank you so much for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much.
You deserve the world, Sugar Plum. Now I'm gonna give it to you.
What do you think? My dad robbed a convenience store when I was 7.
He was shot, or what was it?
Stabbed 12 times in the face and neck. Cue my mom meeting Senator Bradley Wiener. Look at me now, Dad. I get to have all your fun with none of the consequences.
Mary Sue Harper.
Mary Sue Harper
Mary Sue Harper
was detained this afternoon. You need to find a calling in life outside of your vices.
She is a national security risk.
I need you to put a bullet in her.
Senator Wiener looks to be reelected for his 4th term.
Eliminate Mary Sue, and I also garner the sympathy vote. Is the team ready? This job has to be so clean, you could eat off it.
What the hell's going on?
What are we gonna do? We fight. Mary Sue, this is not a video game. Did you kill all those people?
I just got caught up with all the assassination attempts.
Are you gonna kill her?
Don't you find this odd?
Animals like Mary Sue survive and thrive on chaos.
You know, I'm starting to think none of these guys have even played Fortnite.